Yesterday, we took a look at the Dynasty Fantasy Football stock market, and we looked at the running backs. We looked at 3 running backs and their market value. Well, today, we're going to look at 3 wide receivers. We're going to look at their market value and try to determine if we want to buy them or not. That's really up to you. I'm just giving you the prices of what people are doing, and you just make the determination on yourself. So in the comments below, let us know what you want to do with these players. That's something you're into. If you want to know the values of these players throughout the offseason, I'm doing videos like this all the time, off and on throughout the week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out. But starting with our first player, as we do at every video, we like to come down from ADP and work our way down and touch every player. So we'll do a top guy, middle guy, and bottom guy per ADP value, just to keep things interesting. So our top player today that we're looking at here is Chris Olave. Wide receiver 7 in ADP, 11th overall, drafted off the board. He's 23 years old. Second year into his career, already has been productive. Last year he had 2 wide receiver 1 weeks, 4 wide receiver 2 weeks, 10 double-digit PPR fantasy performances, over 1,500 air yards, and a 25% target share. Derek Carr's there now, so we might get something more stable at quarterback. We got Michael Thomas there, so that might be his main competition. Really depends on his health on the long term for next year, but he should be in line for a premium target share, premium workload. And the market's really reflecting this, especially when we look at the trade analyzer in 1QB leagues. The calculator per DLF has him valued more than the 102, but less than the 101. Really, when you put the values together, it's more like the 102 plus the 202 in draft range, something like that, if you're willing to trade for him just with pick value. 2QB leagues, value-wise, around the 103. That's what the calculator's saying. And then we look at actual trades off the trade finder, things that have actually happened here. Geno Smith, Matthew Stafford, and John Mechie. This is in 2QB. We also have a 2024 first, 2025 first, and a 2025 second. So 2 firsts and a second. Rashad Bateman, 2024 first, a 2024 second. This is in 2QB. Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Walker, Quentin Johnston, Jameson Williams, Greg Dulcich, 208, 209, a 2024 second. Aaron Jones, Alexander Madison, 2024 first, 2024 second, and third, a 108 and 109. My thoughts on him is he's going to be expensive. We want to build our teams around young, productive wide receivers due to the long-term effects from that, due to how hard it is to project players for the long-term. Wide receivers that are young who are productive are the easiest to expect things out of going forward. He is expensive, so you're going to have to back up the Brinks truck if you want to get him. Best time to get him is maybe after an injury or during your startup drafts, but he's going to be expensive. You might be able to sneak him on the cheap in some of these deals. Some of these deals feel a little bit light, and some of them feel a little bit heavy. Really depends on what happens when you kick the tires. Just see what happens, really. But I don't see people trying to sell them, but you might be able to see something happen that not everybody else sees, too, because we're seeing that in some deals. But again, if you want him, you're going to have to save up. If you want to sell him, you better get what you want out of him, and you better get a lot back at you. That's what I'm going to say. And the reason why you would sell him is probably because he's your main asset, and you got to rebuild or retool or reconstruction your team, and you just need to just deal that top asset away. There's few teams like that, but there probably is over the thousands of dynasty leagues out there. But we have an older wide receiver we're going to talk about next. He was once valued in this light, but now he's getting older. The time in his league is fading away. And we don't know how much longer we're going to have him. We don't know how much longer he's going to be valued. And we don't know if he's going to be productive now, short-term, long-term, whatever. But we're talking about DeAndre Hopkins of the Arizona Cardinals. Interesting career, because this guy's been in situations where he wasn't supposed to produce, but yet gave you a huge return on investment. Right now, he's wide receiver 40, 83 overall. Turns 31 in June, so he's up there in age, especially for a wide receiver or anybody in the league right now. Last year, though, he had 4 wide receiver 1 games, 3 wide receiver 2 games, 8 double-digit PPR fantasy performances, 41% share of the air yards, 29% target share, 108 air yards per game. This is all with him starting the season in week 7. He was very productive for what we had. He made the best out of his situation. The question is, how Kyler Murray is going to be healthy this season. Where is he going to be at with the knee? Also, new coaching staff, quarterback play, trade rumors, a lot of things going on with the situation. Trade analyzer here. I have 1 QB legs here in the calculator for DLF, around 110-ish range. 2 QB around 112-ish range. As you get deeper down the line, 1 QB, 2 QB, the variance kind of gets a little closer as you get a little bit deeper. Trade finder here, the actual trades that happen on my fantasy league that are real. So we got trade for the 205, 307, and for a 2024 second. Josh Downs, Jamal Williams, Christian Kirk, 210, then for 206, and then another trade for 203. So what we're seeing here off the trade analyzer and in real trades here, we got a difference here. He is actually being valued less than the 110, 112 range, actually more like a mid-second when it looks like in value here from the trades that we've just seen. Josh Downs, a mid-second to early third. We did our rookie draft ADP about a week or so ago. You can check that out, see where he's been valued in that sample size. But Josh Downs is in that range as well. Jamal Williams, Christian Kirk, kind of in that range as well too when you add that together. You can go tit for tat on the value, but on the broad range, kind of close somewhere around there. My thoughts on him is he's a short-term asset, which is relatively cheap, but can be considered expensive on the same light, considering he's 31 years old, considering his draft capital here on ADP isn't something to shake a stick at. It's still kind of high. 205, you still got some rookies in that range. The talent's still there, though. The talent's still there, though. He's still shown he can be productive. He's been productive in bad situations. So you can't really throw DeAndre Hopkins out with the bathwater either. So he's really a hard guy to peg. But we do know he's 31 years old. We don't know how long. The market's saying this. The market's saying this with how they're being valued here. His price isn't super high. It's been kind of hovering around that area for a bit. But you know what? He's still a cheap guy to get. If you need a patchwork wide receiver to get you through, maybe that's a guy to look at. So that being said, win down teams, he's okay. He's not a guy you're shooting for, gunning for, but he's okay. Anything less than that, if you're not really feeling like you're guaranteed to make the playoffs right now, then he's probably a no for you. If you're rebuilding, he's probably a no for you because you can't hold on to assets like that. And in 2025, when you're ready to make a run for the playoffs, you can't do that with a 33-year-old wide receiver. He looks like a wide receiver who will be in the league longer than what we'll realize. However, top-tier production out of a wide receiver is also totally different and is a totally different thing. So you got to think about that when it comes to the value. The value is still kind of up there where you can get a return on investment. And also his price risk-reward ratio is kind of up there as well. That's a line that you're just going to have to tread and make a determination with your team with what you got, especially when you're trying to build on 2023 and 2024. But if you're going outside of that, if your team's a dumpster fire, if your team's middle of the road or worse, you might want to look another way. And you may want to look another way when building around this player as well because he's really fallen in ADP. His situation's not too grand. There might be some upside here, but it really depends on how you like to build your dynasty rosters. We here like to preach build around the wide receiver, get those young, productive wide receivers, and then fill in the cracks from there. But Chase Claypool with the Bears being drafted as the wide receiver 77, 175th player overall might be enticing to some people. It turns 25 in July, so he's still kind of young, but still kind of up there. He's hitting right in that middle line of age. 2 wide receiver 1 games in his last 2 years. 3 wide receiver 2 games in the last 2 years. 7.1 points per game in 2022. With the Bears now, low volume passing offense. They also added DJ Moore. So there's competition in a low volume passing offense. So this is not trending well for projections, but the price is cheap. So that's what you're looking at here. Trade analyzer on DLF calculator. Things got kind of weird here. 1 QB leagues. He's valued at 210. 2 QB leagues valued at the 404. Let me know right now what you think that should be. Let me know. Because I know, because I looked at the real trades. And we're going to go over those right now. Trade Finder, real trades, what happened? Rashad Penny, he was traded straight up for. Van Jefferson, he was traded straight up for. Pierre Strong, he was traded straight up for. The 312, he was traded straight up for. I'm not seeing the 210 going for any of those players. So he's definitely around the 404, 312, 311, 310 range, somewhere around there. really, when you're in that range, it's all kind of the same, and you're just jockeying for position. Again, like I said in the last video with the cheap running back, when we get to these cheap players, who are you going to invest those cheap picks on? What are you going to do with them? What do you want to do to build the back end of your roster? What are you trying to do? Where do you want to put your cheap capital at? Do you want to funnel it into next year's draft? Do you want to move it to a cheap running back? Do you want to draft a cheap running back? Do you want to draft a cheap veteran wide receiver? What are you going to do? And that's on you, your strategy for your team. But looking at the market here, they're saying, hey, this guy's going to be cheap because we don't value him. He's the third option on low volume passing offense here. We might get some YOLO moments out of him due to his size and just athleticism. But you know what? It's not going to be consistent. We're not going to count on it. We're going to price that in right now. Is that what you want to buy right now? Or do you want to pivot over to one of these running backs? Do you want to pivot it into next year's rookie class? Do you want to go with him? Do you want to go with some of these other options? That's up to you. How I would do it, maybe pivot into next year's draft class, maybe pivot into one of these running backs, and maybe attrition can take its course and maybe you can get some patch-up weeks, maybe something like that. But right now, the value here isn't good. The long-term value isn't great. However, you can catch this guy on the cheap. That's the thing about these cheap players. Sunk cost is so low, you're not going to lose anything. If he gives you 7 points per game, and you're like, damn, I could use that, and that sounds funny, but a lot of us is in some deep Dynasty leagues. A lot of us is in some deep Devy leagues. So that might not be for you, but it might be for this guy over here who has to stash about 40 wide receivers, and they will take a guy like this and put him in their lineup whenever they can because they're in that deep league. So that's something you also got to think about. Some of us are in some crazy leagues that we probably shouldn't have got in, but we're here, we're handcuffed, and now we're here starting Claypool. That's it. That's how that works. That's why we cover these deep guys. That's why we do it. Because some of these guys, they may not be the sexiest. They might not be the most productive. But some of these guys, in certain situations, in certain leagues, that's what you got to do. But those are 3 wide receivers we are looking at today on the Dynasty trade market. Their player values, what we should be doing, and what can we do it with them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear about it. Make sure you smash that subscribe button on the way out, and I'll catch you on the next video.